It's Real GM Radio. Dakhil is here. We're going to look ahead to the NBA trade deadline. Which teams need to make a trade? We also put together some fun fake trades. Let's jump in. Welcome to Real GM Radio. A reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It really does mean a lot. Helps us build up the YouTube page that we just started. If you're listening to the podcast, hit that subscribe button, follow us on the podcast. Also head over to that YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button there as well. But Dakhil is here. We're going to look ahead to the NBA trade deadline. You can find Mo's writing over on Bleacher Report. Find his show, The Jump Ball, on Twitch. Mo, you're an X's and O's guy, one of the best. Must follow on Twitter, X. But we're not talking about X's and O's necessarily here, although that's going to be part of the conversation. But do you get excited for the trade deadline with all the slop and the narratives and the rumors and the stories and the leaks and all of it?
I'm human. Of course I do. I love it. It's just as fun. And then, the idea is that you kind of go like, the thing about trade deadlines is how is this going to end up and how are these guys going to affect them on the court? And the X's and O's, how are they going to play together? What's a match and whatnot? It's not fantasy sports. These guys have to play together on the court, and how does it work and how does it match up? So it's really a fun time. It's interesting. Kind of sucks with the new CBA though, with everybody so afraid of the first and second apron, that it kind of really does hamper trades, which I think a lot of people saw coming, but it's frustrating for those who really just enjoy the trade deadline.
It is, right? And we've already seen it. No player that makes more than $20 million has gotten traded yet. So you're getting the trades, right? I would argue we're getting just as many trades as we did in the past, but it's these smaller moves that have been happening, right? A Dennis Schroeder here, Dorian Finney-Smith there, a Thomas Bryant to Indiana. Like, those trades have helped those teams. Maybe not the Warriors, but most of the time those trades have helped those teams. So I do have some of those trades that we're going to get to. So first part of the show, we're going to talk about the teams that need to make a trade. We're going to maybe talk about a little bit what that looks like. And then we've got like our specific fake trades that we came up with. I've got some realistic ones. I've got some off the wall ones, some just like thought exercise style trade machine ideas. We're going to get to that in the second part of the show. But the big news here, we're going to start with it. Jimmy Butler suspended for 2 games by the Miami Heat after missing the team flight to Milwaukee. Jimmy Butler wants to get to the Suns. I don't think that would stop the Heat from trading him to somewhere else, considering how ugly all of this has gotten. But is there another team that you think that you can come up with that should be in on the Jimmy Butler business?
I mean, I think teams like, Memphis, Milwaukee, I think are teams I would, be looking at it. It's hard in this instance when you kind of look at the whole thing of like, how much does Jimmy have left? But you also know he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder. He's going to be playing. That's kind of the best Jimmy, is an angry Jimmy. I think there's a lot of interesting things with that. But also, if you're not Phoenix, is he going to be happy, or is he going to be just as big a pain in the ass as he's been with Miami? And I think that's got to be something you got to calculate if you're these teams that are wondering, like, hey, are we going to really take a swing on trading Jimmy and giving up assets? This is going to cost a lot to get him. Is it really worth it if we're just going to kind of inherit another team's asshole?
Right. It's tough.
Language, but
no, it's fine. It's totally okay here. It's a great question, and to me, it comes down to how desperate are you, right? And if you're a team like Milwaukee, it's like, yep, we're pretty desperate because we'll inherit your asshole if it means we get to keep our superstar in Giannis, because there is real intrigue as to whether Giannis will ever ask out. And every time that storyline has percolated a little bit, the Bucks have made a big move. They traded for Jrue Holiday a few years ago. That led to a championship, obviously. Start percolating again. They make the big Damian Lillard trade. And when they traded Jrue Holiday for Damian Lillard, the whole idea of nostalgia or feel-good vibes or anything, that went out the door. So if you don't think that they would trade Middleton, they would trade him in a heartbeat if they thought it would really move the needle for them. I don't know if that necessarily means for Jimmy Butler, but I think if it was for the right player that they thought moved the needle, I don't think that would stop them at all, given their even despite the history that Middleton has in that organization. But it would be really easy. And to the other point too is, I guess, like, I don't know that you're going to have to worry about Jimmy Butler as long as you get him that extension. And that's why I think the not Memphis stuff is out there. I'm assuming that the Grizzlies have communicated, like, we're just not going to give you that extension. Maybe they would treat Jimmy Butler as some sort of rental. And that's obviously not cool with Jimmy. Just look at the Miami situation. So
Right.
if the Bucks are said, would trade for you, we'll also give you the 2-year, $113 million extension. Probably not the worst thing in the world, right? If you're the Bucks and you say, well, we got Giannis under contract. We deal with 2 more years of Jimmy Butler. We still have Damian Lillard. It does fit our timeline, whatever that might be.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for the Bucks, but I'd also just say that teams are it's gonna get interesting as we get closer to the deadline. We're at, January 24th right now, or 23rd. We'll see where we're at, February 3rd, and what's the situation, and does
Right.
Memphis change their mind, or do they communicate we would be willing to give the extension and things like that. But right now, Jimmy's locked into Phoenix. Like, that's really his main focus with all that, and we'll see how it goes. It's going to be very difficult for that to work out with Phoenix, unless they find a way to get Beal somewhere where he wants to be. And there's just overcomplicated with that. I'm sure that's been talked ad nauseum on every podcast with the no trade clause and things like that. But it's just interesting with Jimmy. He can help a lot of teams, but also we got to remember what you're paying for. He's 36 years old. He load managed a whole bunch last season, still got hurt. It was a bit of a freak accident, but still got hurt. It's not like, you want to extend him for 2 more years, 3 more years. So you're going to pay him when he's 38, 39 at 50 something million. That's tough, man. That's really hard. And so I think the contract more than anything would scare teams, would scare me away as a GM if I'm a certain situation, it's just not something I would feel like I'm so confident that I'm going to get my value back out of this.
Right, which is, I go back to desperate, right? That's why teams like Phoenix and even Milwaukee, they keep coming up. It's because they're already sort of pot committed. What's another $50 million for a guy who's 36 years old and injury prone, right? When you kind of look at those rosters. So, but that's enough with the Jimmy Butler thing. We'll see how it plays out. What teams need to make a trade? I've got a list of teams here. I want to start with the Lakers. We can almost do this blackjack style. I can ask you, like, hey, stay or hit. Like, what do you think that they should do?
Right.
With the Lakers, big move, small move, nothing. Where are you at on them?
I'm on a big move, but the thing is, it's not to be a contender. It's just blow it up. It's over.
Oh, wow.
It's done.
Hot take right off the start. Okay, let's go.
I just don't see how this organization is really going to get much better. Really, you moved Russell for Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, that's a nice move around the edges, but like, it's not like, okay, they're contenders now. They're it's on LeBron and AD, and LeBron's 40. You're at this point now that he can't do it every night all game. He can take over a quarter, but he can't really do beyond that. It's been proven over and over again, this team can't beat Denver. So, like, if they play them in the playoffs, they're screwed. It's like, I don't know where they're going with this. And I think at this point, it would be smart to, like, hey, man, let's start figuring out what's a good landing spot for LeBron, what's a good landing spot for AD, and let's just start over, because we've not done a good job building this roster since the championship in 2020. I like the moves they made right after the championship. I understood it.
Right.
I thought, like, okay, I can see that. But then after the Westbrook trade, it was all over.
Yeah.
And their chance to really compete and contend and make changes and stuff like that, I just don't see it for them. I don't know what they're doing at this point, and I don't know the road. And for them to be able to get a star that's going to make them a contender again with LeBron and AD, and if that's the case and that ship has sailed, you got to start looking at, like, okay, what can we get for these guys, in the sense of, like, we need to start rebuilding, and let's go and get moving on this, and let's not waste those guys.
It's a great call. If they were to actually start taking phone calls for LeBron James, who also has a no trade clause, it's not just Bradley Beal. It's the only other guy in the league who has a no trade clause. I'm sure the other 29 teams would call, right? Or most of them would be like, yeah, we're interested in the LeBron James business. Like, who wouldn't be? Like, what owner wouldn't at least tell their general manager, give the Lakers a call? You can't not be in on it.
I don't know if you get all 29 teams. Like, there's going to be teams that I don't think are going to be interested in, and it's even worth their time for a phone call. But listen, there's teams out there that like, hey, like we should explore it and let's see what it's going to cost to get him. I don't know if the price is going to be insane or
Right.
whatnot. I don't know if the Lakers have the guts to pull a trade like this, and obviously it would have to be in conjunction with LeBron's permission, like you said, with the no trade clause. But let's just be honest, like where they're going, why is he sticking around?
Right. I mean, the reason he sticks around is because he likes it. But I almost like I always had the hard like I have a hard time reconciling the fact that he knows, like LeBron knows what this team is. He has to. Is it? I guess it's just enough to be like, I live in LA. I play with my son. I'm breaking records. Just moved up over Scottie Pippen in all-time steals. Like it's one of those seemingly every other night for him. I guess he's good with that because this is a bummer. Like this, watching him and Steph, who we'll talk about here in a second, like watching them just playing for middling, mediocre teams. Like I don't need these teams to win championships. Like I don't, and what it doesn't really matter what I need, but I just think the overall NBA fan, I don't think anybody expects or wants necessarily these teams to make some sort of dramatic move that gets them up back to championship contention. But like out of the play-in tournament, like, can we at least see these guys in a 7-game series? I think that would at least be fun. But that's from like an outsider's perspective. I don't know, like the Lakers, the Warriors, they can't really carry themselves that way, right? I just think that that's from a fan's perspective
Well,
of, I just want to see these guys in a meaningful playoff game.
right, but even from the Lakers' perspective, you should want to be in the playoffs and be up.
Right.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with the Lakers, right? And it starts with Rob Pelinka constantly kicking the can down the road. Like the number of just the BS we've heard over the time. We can't evaluate the team till we have Gabe Vincent and Jared Vanderbilt healthy. Really? Those two are and no offense to those. That's I can evaluate the team based just I can plug in what those guys are going to do, and pretty confident I can evaluate the team and understand what your future is. And it continues to kick the can down the road. Okay, we're not going to make it. Remember all last year? Oh God, talked ad nauseum about the trade deadline with the Lakers and that pick that they had and what are they going to do and what's the move, and then they decide to kick the can down. Like we're going to be better off if we wait till the draft. When the draft, we'll be able to move more picks, we'll be able more flexibility in offseason,
Right.
and then they do nothing.
And they do nothing, right? And if you look back at that, it's such a great call because, all right, don't move the 2030 pick because if we move the 2030 pick, then that takes away the 2031 and the 2029. Well, now this year you have 2029 and 2031 to move. Move them! Time to move them. It's ridiculous.
But not you don't even do it in the off season. Try to make a play and trying to make a run. And maybe there just wasn't great guys out there or whatnot. I still think, and it's that ship has sailed because the team's playing better. But I think Atlanta would have been interested in those picks for Trae Young. I think that would have been a place, and I think Trae Young would have done really well playing off of LeBron and AD. I think that would have been an interesting scenario with all that. But like, just there was nothing. There was no real movement and attempts to do anything. And on top of it, there was no real attempts to lift this team up in the offseason. And we're not seeing it now. So it's like, if you're not going anywhere, then move LeBron and AD and start the future and start working on your future and start building for that. Instead, you're going to continue to do all these things. Like, I wasn't the most vocal about like, oh, how dare they draft Bronny James at 55 and everybody who was upset. Like, I wasn't that upset with that. But I am upset with how they're trying to develop him, or I should say not, and just hand it over to, I'm assuming it's LeBron and Clutch kind of dictating the terms with that, but how he's not in the G League playing regularly. I am upset with that. Like, you're just not developing your team. You're not building anything forward. You've done really well with some of the picks you've gotten. Some of the unsigned guys, like the Austin Reeves find was great. He's on the best contract in the league, really, if you look at it. I think they're in a great, they've done some smart stuff, but they just stopped. And it's just, okay, we got Dorian Finney-Smith. We traded D'Lo. They're probably not going to do anything big at the trade deadline. And I just look at it going like, we're going nowhere.
Right. You got to pick a direction. And the difference between them and the Warriors is where, I don't want to do the Warriors thing yet, but the Warriors at least have like some young players that you feel good about. I don't know that you feel that way for the Lakers, right? Like there's no, like Austin Reeves, you want to keep him, but you're not like looking at Dalton Connect necessarily being like, that guy's untouchable, or we need like this big type of, I don't think you have that kind of depth of youth there. I do think there's some minor moves that they can make that would at least get them more competitive. I look at, can you get a backup center so that Jackson Hayes never has to play for you again? That Christian Wood never has to play for you. Can you get another like two-way perimeter presence who can help bolster that part of the rotation? That's what I'd be looking at here if I were the Lakers. Now, we got some fake trades that we'll get to later on, but looking at what Phoenix just did with their 2031 pick, splitting it into three, so that okay, yeah, the 2031 pick is really valuable. Maybe there's nothing out there for that necessarily, but these three picks, maybe we can get a couple little things here for it potentially, unless obviously they make the Jimmy Butler move. Like I look at that and I look at the Lakers and I'm saying maybe you should do that with the 2029 or 2031, split that up. You might not want to move 29 or 2031 for Jonas Valanciunas, for instance. But if you split that up, you can keep a couple of second round picks and then move a lesser first round pick for Jonas Valanciunas. That could be something for you. Do something similar with another minor pick for another just like little depth piece somewhere else in the perimeter. That could be helpful, and that bolsters your rotation a little bit, makes you a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I mean, like that's a smart idea, but again, like Wes, like let's just be honest. Is that really even going to get them out of the play-in tournament? Like, is that like it's when you look at the teams that are there now, like
I think it could. Like, I mean, they're fifth right now. I mean, I know there's only a game, like half game, 2 games, separating the Lakers with the 10th seed. But like, if you really kind of shore up some of those weak links in the rotation, I think this team could be solid, not spectacular.
I think ships. I think it's sailed on them, and I understand. Like, I am trashing a team that's fifth in the West, but I don't think they will be fifth in the West when the season's over, and I don't think they'll be
they still have a
sixth
negative
either.
point differential. They have a worse point differential than Phoenix.
It's not even. I mean, it's really kind of crazy. It's -2 in point differential. That's a big mark there. And I think people don't understand that. Like that's one of those things. They've gotten lucky and pulled out some wins. I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, they play Boston tonight. Like they're going to the schedule gets tougher as they go through the season. I don't see it. And then you have Sacramento balling right now. Clippers, when they play Kawhi, Kawhi has looked good as of late. Those are 2 teams right there that I think are behind them that are going to catch them. Like I think that's without saying understanding what other trades happen around the league. Does Minnesota find a way to get going? I just don't think this team is going anywhere. And if anything, the ceiling for them, even solid, even if they plug in those holes and are solid, first round exit.
Mm-hmm.
They're not beating Oklahoma City. I don't think they can beat Houston, although that would probably be a fun series. I think Memphis would be a fun series as well, but I think Memphis would beat them, and I think Denver would wipe the floor with them. Like, I just don't know what they're doing at this point. And if they don't have any appetite, and I mean this in the sense of like if the organization has no appetite to actually take a swing and make a run, what are we doing here?
Right. Zach LaVine, Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler, like those are the names that are out there. Tough to get up to some of those salaries, but we don't have to do the math right now. But like any of those names, does that like LaVine to me would be really interesting for them.
I think LaVine is one of the most underrated one of the trade pieces out there that is nobody's really talking about because we're so enamored with Jimmy Butler. I'm gonna be honest, I'd rather have Zach LaVine than Jimmy Butler.
Oh yeah.
Right now, like just the way they're playing and things like that. LaVine is balling. He's killing it. Look, I know he's bad defensively. But he's a little bit better than he's been over the years. And I think he's shooting it so well that it can make up for it in that sense. Like that's a guy I'd really take a long look at if I'm any of these teams. Anybody that's interested in Butler, I'd be like, the other guy, LaVine, and he's not as contentious. I don't have to walk around eggshells. I don't have to worry about him being upset, and he's also not fighting for a contract.
Right. It's almost the opposite. Everything you hear out of Chicago is everybody loves this guy. Like everybody loves being around Zach LaVine. I'm still not sure why the Bulls even want to trade him, but if they are open to trading him, that would be the guy to me if I'm the Lakers that I'm looking at. But to your point, if you're not going to do that, then what are you doing? You might as well go the other way. But let's talk about the Warriors here. Stay put? Should they make a big move? Similar situation to the Lakers, a little bit different. What do you think they should do?
Well, they should have made the move for Markkanen. I don't know how real that was in the offseason. But if it was a matter of like Podziemski and listen, Danny Ainge asks for the entire world. He probably asked for the Golden Gate Bridge and Alcatraz in these trades. Like I'm not like I don't know how real that stuff was, but in the environment that they were in, like you look at the team, like they really needed to make a big move to bring in a second guy. I'm going to throw another wild one at you that I know you're not ready for.
Okay.
But like they do need to call the Lakers and see if they can get LeBron.
Oh yeah.
Like
Again.
that's
Call
just
him again.
yeah, just honestly, I would call him every day. I would call
Have Draymond do it.
Pelinka every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have Draymond call LeBron if he wants,
Right.
whatever. But I would have my front office calling every day, going like,
Yes.
"Hey, man, like, let's just mash this thing up. Like,
Yeah.
let's go. We'll
Hey,
give you a lot."
Gold Medal 2.0. Let's go. Steph and LeBron again. I mean, how they carry the Olympics team. You said I'm not ready for it, dude. I've been talking about this since last trade deadline.
All right. So
Everybody on the
fair
planet
enough.
wants. Everybody wants. Who wouldn't want?
But it's not even. But it's not
Lakers
even about
fans would be the only ones that don't want it.
It's not even about we want to see this and all of that stuff. The Lakers need, if they're not going to make a move to try to be a championship team, they need to move LeBron, like they should in that sense. And if they're going to do that, they need to make sure they get a haul back. And look, let's go to the Warriors. I would want the Warriors picks over the next few years because I imagine this team's going to fall off at a certain point. And
Give him Kuminga,
that's,
Jemski,
I mean,
just all.
I'm not even,
yeah.
I'm not in love with, and there's a lot of, you have to make things work, and there's a lot of stuff, and it's probably going to be more than it's probably got to be a 3-team trade or whatnot. I mean, you're going to move Wiggins, Kuminga, and Podemski, I think, to start off with, and there's going to be a lot of stuff there. But like, I just don't see a reason for it. Just would make sense for both teams. Give the Warriors a chance to really compete. It would obviously give them a chance to make a run. They're sitting right now outside the play-in tournament. Obviously, a 3-game win streak, and they're right back in it. I just think I don't think it's going to happen. No. But I really think that's the Warriors got to take a swing. Because again, I mean, Zach LaVine would help.
No, how much? I love the LeBron thing because now you're telling me I get Steph, LeBron, Draymond, and Steve Kerr. Fill in the rest of it. Like, you know what? Just fill in the rest of it. Like that.
And it might not be enough to win it, but it's going to be interesting, and it's going to give you a shot. You're in a better position.
That team can make the Western Conference Finals.
You're in a better position if you're the Warriors to make the conference finals and maybe get to the finals than you were before you started this. And I think for the Lakers, again, it allows you to start the rebuild. And I think that's just really the game they got to start looking for. For anybody listening, I am tearing down the Lakers. Like, I get it, but like they have to come to the realization they're going nowhere.
Right. And even if you do that, you can retool around Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is still relatively young compared to guys like Steph and LeBron. It's like, okay, I got Anthony Davis, I've got Kuminga, I got Podemski, I got Wiggins, I got some stuff here. That's an interesting team. That's a foundation, right? I got a guy who is a perennial all-star. I've got some good role players around him. I got some nice young flyers, like a guy like Kuminga. That makes sense for me. This stuff works. I'm here for it. That said, I don't expect anything big there in Golden State. Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, all said on the record that they are going to be patient, that they don't want to do anything dramatic. When they say that stuff, I actually do believe them. I don't really think it's as much of a leverage play as some people have made it out to be. I believe them. But I do think a fringe move, a guy like Nikola Vucevic, it's been reported, like that to me makes sense. I actually like Vucevic for them quite a bit because he kind of, when I think about problem solving, Mo, I'm like, okay, what's one thing I could do that solves like a lot of different problems? And adding a guy like Vucevic would solve multiple problems for Golden State. It would obviously give you a starting caliber center, which I like Trace Jackson Davis fine. He's not a starting caliber center in a playoff series. Kevon Looney has been in and out of the rotation. It gives you that. Gives you the floor spacing that you want, right? And it also allows you to play Draymond and Kuminga in that starting lineup, which has been quietly the most disruptive thing going on in Golden State right now, is that two of their best 3 players, they can't play them at the same time because neither of them space the floor. So you put Vucevic in there, and now instead of having a non-floor spacer like Looney or Trace Jackson Davis at that 5 spot, you have a legitimate guy who can space the floor. Now you're able to play Draymond and Kuminga together. Now we have Vucevic, Draymond, Kuminga, Steph, whatever other guard you want out there. That to me makes a little bit more sense. It kind of helps things click into place a little bit. I like that for them.
I like that a lot for them in the sense of offensively. I will worry about them defensively, and
Sure.
also like their transition defense as of late after this 12-3 start has been atrocious. And I
Mhm.
don't think that fixes that, right? Like obviously, look, Draymond's been out in and out of the lineup with injuries and things like that. It's he's the heart and soul of their defense. Maybe it changes defensively. Maybe the defense will be fine if it's Draymond kind of pushing and yelling at,
And if
Vooch.
they're also joyless. I mean, watching these Warriors, and I saw them in person a few weeks ago. Like this is transition defense. A lot of time is just being bought in and effort, right? It's just getting back, and this team just feels like it doesn't want to do anything. Like it feels like homework watching the Warriors sometimes. If
Well,
they're
I
a
mean,
little bit more competitive, I think the transition defense is a little bit better.
it's not even that. I mean, they were in the game last night against
Yep.
Sacramento, and then it's the last couple of plays. It's transition defense that kills them, and
Yeah.
it's Steph taking a very deep three, which I didn't really like in the situation, leads to a long rebound, and
That was
then
a
it's a foul
frustration
on the
period.
other
Yeah.
end, and it's you just kind of go like, well, okay, nobody got back defensively in that instance. No floor balance or any understanding of that. You had four guys pretending to crash. Really, you had two guys crash the offensive glass and two guys stay in the corner. So it's you're really kind of scrambling, and I don't know, man. Like I'm kind of just dubious of this team. Like, okay, we'll get Vooch. Great. Okay, you'll probably be a playing team. Like he'll help you. Like you said, it'll help spread the floor a little bit. It'll open things up. Draymond's been shooting the three ball well this season. So, you can kind of have a little bit more, even more of a spread situation. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a
Yeah.
grumpy dude, but like it just doesn't move me in a way. I just kind of shrug my shoulders, like, cool, you got Vooch. Like, that's gonna
No,
be
it's
great.
fair.
He's gonna be good. Handoffs and stuff with Steph and things like that. And that action. I understand what you're going for, but it's like, okay. Like I don't
Yeah.
you're still not competing with any of the big boys in the West.
And the shoulder shrug is an appropriate response, and that's kind of where I think this ends up for Golden State. But we'll see.
Hmm.
Let's move on to a couple other teams. The Toronto Raptors. Do they need to make a move? Get some more interesting ones here.
So I don't think they do. I mean, they if they want to maximize some of the guys, yeah, like in terms of what they can get back for guys, I think sure. Like I think they can be really smart sellers in this market, but I don't think they need to make a move. Right now, it's just you're still developing your roster. Like, look, Grady Dick's been awesome.
Yeah,
He's been phenomenal. I think RJ Barrett's been really good for
really
them.
good.
Quickly's been in and out of the lineup. Like it's been hard to kind of get a gauge on that. Scotty Barnes has been very good for them. I think they have the thing that frustrates me about Toronto, Wes, is like I don't think they know what they want to be. And I
Right.
don't mean in terms of uh contend, whatever, all that stuff. I don't even think they know what type of team they want to be. And
Hmm.
I think sometimes they're just kind of in that weird spot. They're going to get a lot of phone calls. People are going to be calling about Olynyk. People are going to call about Boucher. It's they have
Bartle,
interesting
Bruce
pieces,
Brown. Yeah.
but yeah, all of those guys are all going to get. They're going to get calls and stuff, and there could be players in the deadline in terms of this is a good opportunity for them to kind of make some moves and add more future assets for themselves. But like they're so far out of it. It's not like they should be buyers in this market. It's
Right.
like they're so far out.
Well,
It's
to
I
your
don't
point,
know.
like I think you're exactly right. It's been years now where they've just been adding guys who are long and kind of athletic, and it's just sort of been this nebulous. We don't really know what we are, but we like Scotty
Well,
Barnes.
it started with they had a crazy idea of like I think it was like Vision 6'9" or something. Everybody on the
Right.
floor was going to be 6'9". We don't need a center.
Right.
And let me just tell you, that was by far one of the dumbest things. I could have told you that when I heard. If you gave me the deck and tried to present that to me, I would have looked at you like you were a moron. And the fact they tried that says a lot.
They tried it, ditched it by trading for Pirtle. He was good for them
Yeah,
at first, and now they're open to trading Pirtle. So to your point, it's
yeah.
like, all right, so what are we going to be? I will say, I think they need to act with a little bit of urgency here because they have it. This is an organization that has a history of probably waiting too long to move their guys, Pascal Siakam, etc. If I could get a good trade for Pirtle right now, I would. You got to move Bruce Brown before the deadline. His contract is expiring. Get something for that, right? Chris Boucher, probably ditto, even though there would be some use in re-signing Boucher. The word out of Toronto is that he's great in the locker room, and he's been good for them, shooting the lights out lately. But yeah, I would just be, to your point, trying to figure out Like what is it that we're trying to be? What's the team around Scotty Barnes? Michael Grange, who does a great job covering the team up there in Toronto, reported Thursday morning that they're kind of having their eye on how do we get that next, in the word he used, significant piece. That was the phrase he used. How do we get our next significant piece to pair next to Scotty Barnes? So, okay, great question. How do you do that? Obviously, maybe you just get that in the draft this year. You get lucky in the lottery. You get Cooper Flag. Maybe that's it, taken care of. But trying to use these pieces that you have now, make sure you get those assets to make those big moves in the future. Because they have a second-round pick coming over from Portland this year, which should be pretty good. They have an Indiana pick coming down next year, which I think is lottery protected. That's about it. They have their own picks, but start acquiring more of the stuff and moving some of these pieces will help them do that. What about the Celtics? Do they need to make a move? I have an argument that they should.
Okay. I would only I don't think they need to make a move. Let's just put it that way. I don't feel like it's if the trade deadline happens and they don't do anything, fine.
Right.
They're honestly, and they haven't been playing well, but it's almost like they're kind of just coasting in the way they're sort of operating as on the court and the way they're playing. But I think, just ultimately, I don't think this is where the CBA stuff comes in. You can't the only way I go, you need to make a move so you can try to start getting a little bit closer to out of the apron, but they're so far deep into it. I don't know, they could probably trade a third of their roster and still be in the second apron with all the money they owe guys. I don't think there's much I would look at for them. I like what they have. I like even the backup bigs, I like, Cornette. I like Cada. I don't feel like they have to make anything.
Right. I look at the deal they made last year with Xavier Tillman. That ended up being a nice little helpful move. Nothing crazy, but I think they could probably use one more guy in the backcourt if they were going to. Again, if the trade deadline comes and goes and they don't make a move, Celtics fans aren't going to be going to the message boards, right? But if I were them, I'd be looking, okay, we got this Jaden Springer expiring. We got a couple things here and there. Can we move something, get a little bit something else for us? Drew Holiday's been in and out with the shoulder injury, so that would be the only reason I'd be maybe a little bit of backcourt help could help them just sort of get through this regular season slog. Last two more I got for you.
Yep.
The Spurs. They've been good. They've been in this play-in mix. They're out of the play-in as we're here sitting now. They got a big win against the Pacers during the Paris game Thursday afternoon. But before that, they had lost 7 of the last 10 games. I'm going to do the math really quick. Now they've lost 6 of the last 10 games. This team, I think they should be a little bit more aggressive. Might even be too aggressive of a word, but they should be looking to try to add something that firms up their play-in position a little bit more.
Okay, so what is that?
It's a great question. I don't know.
I don't. I feel like this is what frustrates me, I think, with us, the royal we in the media, is that we want to accelerate it quicker than everybody else. And I feel like the fact they're competing for a play-in spot is a win for them right now. When you saw how they were last year, they were awful. And that's with Wemby. And the fact that they're in that mix right now, they're a game and a half right now from it with Phoenix at 10. But I don't know necessarily I'd be willing to give up assets right now when I can't just 100% pinpoint.
Right.
This is what. Listen, if it was a situation where Darius Garland was available, go. Right. If it's De'Aaron Fox, go. All that's none of that stuff's there, right? It's not I don't know, it's I don't want to go chasing around and end up with Jordan Poole, who's been all right for the Wizards.
Yeah,
but it's
Anthony Simons, these guys just not moving the needle. I think what they need to do, and I don't even mean a big deal like that, just shore up the rotation a little bit. Can I get a backup center who I really like that's not Charles Bassey or Zach Collins? Can I get a little bit more help on the perimeter? Just a little move that does, to your point, you're not accelerating, you're not using assets. Maybe you're just moving around deck chairs a little bit. But I'd be at least looking if I were the Spurs.
Yeah, but I think right now, if you're going to get, I think right now the hard thing is it's at what price, right? If it's just moving deck chairs or whatever, okay, fine. If I'm trading my center for your center, they're both expiring or whatever, and it won't hurt us, okay, fine. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. And I don't think that's what the market's going to be. Teams that are looking for centers right now, they're looking at, there's a lot of competition between Olynyk, Portal, Robert Williams, Jonas
And
Valanciunas,
Capella
like
might be
all
out there now. Yeah.
Capella and stuff. All those guys are going to cost you an asset.
Yeah.
And if I'm the Spurs, I'm like, just roll.
Yeah.
Roll one more year. It's fine. If we get one more, if they're in the lottery this year, this is probably the last year they're in the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not and it's not going to be like, oh, we have a chance at the first pick or anything, but it's one of those things. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's everybody trying to accelerate it with them. We're like, nah, man, we're beginning to kind of figure it out with what they have. I think Castle was a great pickup for them in last draft. Just figure it out as they keep going. Vassell's been awesome. Unless something really great comes your way, I'm not looking to make moves.
Right. I put it to the poll. Asked the folks on Twitter, would you rather us talk about the Timberwolves, the Bulls, or the Kings? More than 60% said the Timberwolves. So we're going to talk about the Timberwolves. Do you think that they should make a move, or should they stay put? What should they do?
I mean, if they could find a new home for Randall, but I
Yeah.
just don't think there is one. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I would have told them not to have made the cat trade from the beginning, with everything that they did. But I don't know if there's a move for them to make. Like who's clamoring to get Randall? You're not trading Naz Reid. You're not trading Gobert. Sure as hell not trading Ant. Right? Like that's definitely not happening. Like who are you looking at that's going to bring you a piece that's going to be really interesting?
The only thing that you're getting for Randall at this point is a team trying to get off of a long-term contract. And the only reason you have Randall is because you just got off of a long-term contract with Karl-Anthony Towns, who happened to be one of your best players. So kind of turning that paperclip into like a worse paperclip would be really dumb by the front office. I actually think that I wouldn't rush this if I was Minnesota. What they are this year is disappointing, no question. But as soon as you make the cost-cutting move, because that's ultimately what it was, of trading Karl-Anthony Towns, you baked this in. You understood we're probably going to be taking a step back this year. Okay, it's all going according to plan then, because you did take a major step back this year.
Right.
See what happens with Randall over the offseason. If he opts out, great. If he opts in, he's on an expiring. Maybe you can move him then. It becomes a little bit easier. In the meantime, get Rob Dillingham some minutes. The Dante DiVincenzo injury really stinks. That hurts them. But either way, like this team is out here playing like a team that traded their second best, just lost their second best player. That's what they look like.
I mean, it was just silly, like them throwing away a Western Conference finalist, for cost cutting is the stuff that's the stuff that's bad for the NBA. Right. When it became a situation where, and we still don't know who the owner is, but when that kind of all started to go down, and then I thought it was like all this rumors. I was like, man, they'd be dumb to trade Cat. And then they do it. And then they do it for Randall, which no shot against Randall. In the right situation, he can be really good. That's not in Minnesota. That's not the right fit for him. That's never was going to be a smart fit. It's just like, I don't understand what they're doing, how they're planning on building. I don't understand if they thought, oh, we can make this move and still be top 6 in the West, top 4 in the West. I go, like, that is a massive miscalculation of a front office of epic proportions that I don't know, how you kind of recover from that. I would love for them to make a move. I don't see where they can. Yes, you want to spread big, but I don't see how you get it.
Yeah. I have one fake trade for Minnesota that I want to get to you, but that I want to throw at you. But before we get to that, I mean, this is really the opposite, I think, of what Adam Silver envisioned when he and the owners and the Players Association envisioned when they instituted this new sort of firmer salary cap, right? With the aprons and stuff. The whole idea, I thought, was to keep the hometown talent at home. But they was so restrictive. And I understand most of this roster was built prior to the apron world, and that there was some sort of there's an adjustment period that we're literally living through right now. But that stinks, man. Like, just like from a vibes, like this team made the Western Conference Finals last year. The fans started falling back in love with Karl-Anthony Towns, and then they have to move him to the Knicks essentially for a cost-cutting move. That's lame. Like, nobody wants that. And to your point, it's so that's bad for the NBA. That's not what I can imagine Adam Silver was envisioning. But we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, fake trades. Some more realistic than others. We'll be right back here on RealGM Radio. All right, Mo Dakhil is here. Got some fake trade ideas that I want to throw at you. You have some fake trades too, right? You brought some.
I have one. I brought one home. I did my homework assignment to do just one.
That's how I did my homework in high school, and that's why I do sports now. Give me your one. We'll just start with yours, and then we'll go to mine.
Okay, so I am fascinated with Cam Johnson. I think he is the most interesting guy that might get moved and can move the needle depending where he lands in the trade market. And we know Brooklyn is asking for 2 first-round picks for him, and
Right.
obviously you have to make the money work and stuff like that. We've heard a lot of noise about Memphis kind of being interested in Jimmy. We know the whole thing there. Man, I don't want Jimmy there. I want Cam Johnson for the Grizzlies. And I don't know how realistic this stuff is. I'm also not a trade machine Picasso or anything like that. I mess around for some of my crazy ideas, but I would obviously the Grizzlies get Cam Johnson and they send Marcus Smart, Jake LaRavia, both expiring contracts, and the 2 first-round picks for the Nets. 2025 and 2027. I wouldn't go much further than that.
Right.
If I'm Memphis, I wouldn't give up later picks because
No.
I don't know what the team's going to look like. But with Cam Johnson 2 years under his deal, I really think that's a team that's really interesting. Ja Morant, Desmond Bain, Cam Johnson, Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. I finally could say it, and then Zach Edey. Like that's a hell of a starting lineup. It's a lot of length. I think you get a lot. You get really good. You're really good defensively. I think you're really strong offensively. I think Johnson brings a good amount of spreading the floor and willing to attack off the dribble. I think Ja opens up the floor for him to drive and attack even more. Like I think that's the stuff there. For the Nets side, you get the 2 first-round picks. Like I get it. It might be steep, and you might have to overpay. But if you're Memphis, you want to get back to where you were before the whole Ja suspension, Dylan Brooks acting like an idiot, and all of that stuff. You're going to have to, and it's going to cost you a little bit. I'd be willing to make that move.
I like it. I like Jalen Wells. I like everything that he's done. But you're talking about a team that wants to advance in the playoffs. And do you really trust Jalen Wells in a series against Oklahoma City, Denver, Dallas when they're healthy? Like, I don't know. He's a rookie. Probably not, right? So adding some depth there. I like Cam Johnson too because when Edey comes out and when Huff is, when they're playing Jaren Jackson Jr. at center, he can slide over to that 4 spot and really kind of solidify that lineup because now you have Jackson, Cam Johnson, and then you can put Jalen Wells in there, whoever, Vince Williams, Gigi Jackson, who came back recently, and then you got your backcourt. So he logistically makes a lot of sense. So I love the fit. If I'm Brooklyn or if I'm Memphis, I say 1 first-round pick. I know you're out here telling everybody 2. You're going to get 1 from us. You could pick, between these years, whichever one you want. Maybe it's between this year and 2027. To your point, you don't want to go that far out. 2 first-round picks is, to me, a little steep for Cam Johnson, but that's what the negotiation's for. But I like it. I like the deal a lot.
I honestly think I'm still kind of mad that they never got OG Anunoby.
Right.
Those years. And they were so like, we have all these picks and this and that. Like, I think teams get too, like, but when you're sending, I think 3+, then you're really in a problem. Or in swaps and all of these things, then you're really playing with fire as an organization.
Right. Yeah, maybe you put some protections on those. We could, we can have a conversation. Not every draft pick is made equal.
You can put whatever protections, top 5 protections for the 2027 pick, and you're kind of in a good position. The 2025 pick is going to be in the 20s because of where Memphis is right now.
Right.
But I think this is an interesting one for the sense of I think this is something that Brooklyn should consider, where they shouldn't kind of snub their noses at it.
If Brooklyn gets that offer, they should say yes right away.
But I don't think
we'll handle the paperwork and everything. We got it.
But I also just think like Memphis needs to understand like, hey, we need teams around us are getting better.
So I have a Memphis trade for you.
Oklahoma City has all
of
the draft pick. Like they're going to be able to top whatever offers they want in the future. Like let's compete now.
So I have a Memphis trade for you in a similar vein. It's not for Cam Johnson. I want a little bit more dynamism from that spot. I want a little bit more off the dribble pop. I want a little bit more playmaking. Offensively, I just think the bar is going to be really, really high in the Western Conference. So I want a little bit more juice. I'm calling Toronto about RJ Barrett. I really like RJ Barrett. He's really turned a corner here. And if I can have him as sort of my second creator next to John Morant, I like that. Defensively, he's not Cam Johnson, but defensively, Chris Finch, Taylor Jenkins, and Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson. I get enough from that end. I give Marcus Smart, Jalen Wells, or Gigi Jackson to pick a salary, but Marcus Smart, one of those guys, and then 2 to 3 first-round picks, and I'm getting RJ Barrett back. What do you think? I kind of like it.
I don't see Toronto trading RJ Barrett.
That's why I'm thinking it might take 3 firsts to be like, really? You're going to keep RJ Barrett for 3 first-round picks?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So now you just got mad at me for giving up 2 firsts for Cam Johnson, and you just gave 3 for RJ Barrett.
Like, he's a better player.
Huh? Yeah, but he doesn't. But it doesn't. But he's not going to fix what they need. Like, he doesn't really fix a lot for Memphis. He's not a guy I'm going to look at. I'm going to say, cool, I can give him the offense when Ja goes out. He can fully create and run offense altogether. Like, I'm not sold on that. He's gotten better. He's in that stuff, but I don't see that. Like, I think the price of 3 picks is way too much. If I'm Memphis, I'm sending 3 picks to get RJ Barrett. And even then, I'm not looking at it as a team of like, okay, that's really a great just starting lineup is Ja, RJ, Bane, Jackson, and Edey. Like that's nice, but I also feel like you're kind of small. I don't feel like you get a lot of I like length, and I know Bane, as tough as he is, also kind of got short arms. The whole deal there, like I want a little more length with what you have, so I'm not sold on that one for either side.
Right. Fair enough. I teased the Minnesota one earlier. Real simple. 2 players, 2 teams. Minnesota gets Lonzo Ball. Point guard's been a tough spot for them. Mike Conley's obviously coming down. Dante DiVincenzo's not there. They need somebody who can defend, hit threes, and take the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands because that guy cannot consistently make the right decision as a playmaker. So give it to Lonzo Ball. He can do that. Chicago gets Jaden McDaniels. That's the trade. Lonzo for Jaden McDaniels.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that so much. I like Lonzo. I don't necessarily agree with you with get the ball out of Ant's hands, but I love Lonzo.
Sometimes
and
just needs a little bit of help.
I mean, I think there's a level of, with Lonzo Ball, I think you see what he does defensively, and he can, I think his speeding up that offense and getting them going a little bit would be a good thing. And a lot of kickouts and the passing and things like that. I like where your head's at. It gets tough though, like defensively, I know McDaniels hasn't shot the ball well this year, but like he's a key to their defense in terms of their wing. It makes it so that Ant doesn't have to guard the best guy. And I know Lonzo's good defensively, but now you're putting Ant in a situation where he's got to be the number one. I got to take on the other team's best guy. And I think that gets a little bit challenging and tiring. And that's something I would kind of monitor with that. But I like where your head's at.
Walker. You move Nickel Alexander-Walker into the starting lineup, and you probably need one other Julius Randle move to go get one other like prime defender. So it's probably like a move that goes with another move, or maybe a move that is before like the Julius Randle move in the offseason. But yeah, trying to think of stuff.
But Lonzo would be fun. Lonzo would be a lot of fun in Minnesota.
How about Denver? Let's talk Denver. I honestly don't even know how I feel about this. Like, I've got just like these are like minor like little moves. Like these are actually the kind of moves that actually happen. It's not all Jimmy Butler and Zach LaVine. Denver gets Kevin Huerter.
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento gets Zeke Naji, Dario Saric, and Deron Holmes II. Little move. Sacramento's sort of out on Kevin Huerter. I think Huerter's the kind of guy that could have like a little renaissance in Denver. Put him next to Jokic. Let's see what happens. Guy shot like 40% from three a couple years ago.
Why does Sacramento do it?
Because they're just out on the Huerter business. He's making like 17-something million a year. They're just like, he's out of our rotation. Let's just break up this salary, create some flexibility going forward. Get to run.
Okay, I mean, I could see it. It makes sense for them. I think Huerter would find a little more fun playing with Jokic. Obviously, you're going to get a lot more open looks and things like that. Like, in Denver's in need of shooting. I think that's fine with that. And these are guys that are that Denver's not going to miss, for the most part. And I think they'll be okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Right. It's not like nobody's going to be super excited, but it gets you a little bit more of a volume shooter. It gets you some help on the wing if you're Denver. All right. I got one for the Celtics. I mentioned backcourt help before. They get John Conchar from Memphis. The Grizzlies get Jaden Springer and Baylor Shireman. So you're bailing on the Baylor Shireman thing, but you're the Celtics. You're ready to win now. John Conchar. The Drew Holiday shoulder injury is making me a little nervous. I want like a little bit of help in that backcourt. Conchar is just a solid, if not spectacular player. That's the trade.
How much money's on Conchar's contract?
I think it's like 6 or 7 million.
For is he a free agent this year or next? Or what's the how many years? Sorry,
it's in a couple of years. I could pull it up though.
I think when you look at the Celtics with where they are in the tax and whatnot, I don't know if I would add a guy that has multiple years for something I might need help with, but it's not a need. You know what I mean? Like it's not a need. It's a guy I might need. And you know, if we want to make everybody a little more comfortable and get backcourt help, cool. But I maybe not
expiring. Yeah, he's at 6.1 next year and 6.1 the year after that. So it's not a huge contract, but to your point, like when you get to these multipliers, I mean, that's probably
at 6.1 is like 30, you know,
exactly.
for what they're paying for it. So I don't necessarily, like, even though they may not get, all right, they might walk, Springer might walk for nothing. That's actually not nothing. That's less tax dollars for them,
right?
You know, in that sense. So I think that's kind of why I don't think the Celtics would do that. Although I like Conchar.
Contrar's good. No, you're right. We're probably looking for like, you know, Javon Carter from Chicago. I think he's on
Trey Jones or something from like San Antonio. Like that's kind of a guy. If you're going to do it, it's an expiring contract that's not going to have ramifications down the road.
I got a Lakers trade. I got a Lakers Hawks trade, but it's not for Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
The Hawks get Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, and Jackson Hayes. And the Lakers get Clint Capella's expiring and Bogdan Bogdanovic. So I'll sell it to you here. I kind of like Capella in Los Angeles. Gives him a little bit more versatility. He can either come off the bench behind Anthony Davis or play next to Anthony Davis if you want to go big. Bogdanovic is a baller, right? Like that guy that guy's a bucket getter. You can see how he fits in pretty easily. And then with the Hawks, I'm getting Rui Hachimura, giving me a little bit more front court size. Jared Vanderbilt can kind of, if you squint, kind of do the stuff that Larry Nance Jr. was doing before he got hurt. Some small ball 5 minutes there. Hayes is in there for salary matching purposes. His money comes off the books after the season. And Gabe Vincent gives you a little bit more backcourt depth behind Trae Young. I don't know if I like this enough if I'm the Hawks. I might need a draft pick back or something. But Capella and Bogdanovic in one fell swoop for the Lakers, that helps them.
That'd be I would love for Bogdanovic to be anywhere where he can get more touches. Like I'm all in on Bogdanovic. I've been a fan of his since the Sacramento days. You know, when he ended up in Atlanta, it felt like he kind of got put into a little bit of a lesser role with every now and then he pops off. Like the Lakers would be a really good landing spot for him. He'd be good for them. I like it, but I think, Atlanta's going to need a little bit more to grease the wheels there. And I don't know if the Lakers want to give them a draft pick.
Right. It would be like if they throw in the 2029 first, for instance.
That's too much.
I guess doesn't matter. It feels like too much for the Lakers, right? And then for the Hawks, this feels like not quite enough unless they're in love with Rui Hachimura, which I don't know that they are. So, all right. Last one I have for you, Mo.
There we go.
Not to bury the lead, but I got
Make it a good one.
I have a Jimmy Butler trade. It's a great one. No holes. I don't know why it hasn't happened already, as you'll, I'm sure, agree with me. The Phoenix Suns get Jimmy Butler and Patrick Williams. We got 4 teams here. It's the Heat, the Raptors, the Suns, and the Bulls.
Okay.
So the Suns get and the Suns. This would probably have to happen in 2 parts, but that's you could probably do the Patrick Williams part of this first, and then the rest of it second. But this is essentially the parts that move. The Phoenix Suns get Jimmy Butler and Patrick Williams from Chicago. The Bulls get Bradley Beal, Yusuf Nurkic, a 2025 second from Portland via Toronto, and Indiana's 2026 first, again coming over from Toronto. The Raptors get Zach LaVine, and the Heat get Bruce Brown's expiring, Chris Boucher's expiring, and Kelly Olynyk reunites for another. He's under contract for next year. So if you're the Heat, you get the salary cap relief you're looking for. The Suns got those 3 picks. They move those around however they need to get moved. 2 of them go to Miami. Another one, wherever they got to go, they go. But if you're the Heat, you're getting the cap relief. If you're the Suns, you're getting the guy you want, Jimmy Butler. You're also getting off of Yusuf Nurkic, who doesn't play a role for you. You're getting you get to take a flyer on Patrick Williams. And if you're the Bulls, you add Bradley Beal, who's not as good as LaVine, but you're getting a ton of these picks. Maybe you're getting these picks. Maybe you got 1 or 2 of them coming over from Phoenix. And then you're swapping out Williams' long-term contract, which is like for 5 years, for Nurkic, who just has less money owed on his deal. So you get off that bad deal. And that's the trade. And if you're the Raptors, you get Zach LaVine, who's kind of a perfect player to put next to Scotty Barnes. I kind of like that fit a lot. What do you think?
I think if you're the Raptors, you run into trouble with LaVine being unhappy, being sent there.
Okay.
I think, if he's going to get traded, he wants to go to a place that's going to have a chance to really win. They're not going to win this year. They're just so far out of it. Even with LaVine, they can go on a 15-game win streak, and I think then it's still a play-in team with that. I think, listen, it's an interesting one. There's got to be a lot more to work through it. I'm not sure I fully understand the Pacers side of it. Who are the Pacers getting?
Oh, the Pacers aren't getting anybody, but Toronto owns their 2026 first, so that's why that's involved in the deal.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I got confused. It was a lot of teams, Wes.
It was too much. I should have put it on a graphic for you. So yeah, the Bulls. So the Raptors the Raptors currently own Indianapolis. Why do I keep doing that? The Raptors currently own Indiana's 2026 first, so they just moved that over to Chicago.
And the Heat are getting no picks out of that. They're only getting cap relief.
So what I didn't include in this were the 3 picks that Phoenix just got. So some of those move to Miami. Maybe another one moves to Chicago to really make it worth their while to take Beal. So let's say like one of those Phoenix picks goes to Chicago, 2 of them goes to Miami. So Miami's now getting 2 first-round picks.
Okay, so now I'm okay with that a little bit more. I think that's fine. It's just interesting. I don't know. A lot of moving parts. I like your reasoning with the Bulls in terms of just, they get Beal, they reunite Beal with Billy Donovan. Then you have
I don't even think about that part. Yeah.
You have you get Nurkic, so you have a bad contract, but you're getting off of money quicker because you moved out a longer deal. You're
getting like 3 or 4 picks in this. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you got to find a way to spin Vooch off to somebody else, and then maybe to the Warriors, like earlier we talked about. But like, I think it's an interesting one. I don't know if it gets done, but this is also one. This is the type of thing and move the Raptors need to be making. They need to jump into these things and being like, we can help you.
Right.
Let us get we need to get something out of it as well, but we can jump in on that. Same for the Bulls.
And they're stealing, and they'd be stealing LaVine here. It cost them 2 picks that aren't their own. And LaVine is good. He's not so good that it would take them out of the tanking conversation, right? Like, he's not going to dramatically take that. But next year, when you've got one of these picks in this draft that everybody's excited about, you've got LaVine coming back next year. You got RJ Barrett there. Maybe you still have Jakob Poeltl. You obviously have Scotty Barnes. Like, you could kind of do like a real quick kind of Pistons turn and be right back in the mix next season, I think, if you have a guy like LaVine there.
Yeah, no, it's something that's I don't know if you could be right back in the mix, but like you'll be in the running for some stuff, and maybe you can bring in another guy. I just hope LaVine's happy. That's all. I just hope you get LaVine happy in that sense.
Isn't that what we all want? I just want Zach LaVine to be happy.
Well, for Toronto, if you trade for him, I want the guy to be happy. That's kind of my view of it. So, but that's a good one. That's a great way to end the pod on a massive one right there. That's a lot of stuff. You did some work on that one because that was a hard one, I imagine, to put together.
Mo,
how long did it take you?
I was just gonna tell you. I feel like I started on it last night, and I finally got to it probably about half an hour before we started recording.
Yeah, it's that one took work. That one took work. That was a hard. And by the way, that's the way it goes in a lot of these with a lot of these things. So
look, if it was easy, the trade would have already been done. This is so.
Well, you have the Beal no trade clause, so you have to still. I don't know how you got Beal to make that happen, Wes. I don't know what phone call you made.
You already said it. I mean, Billy Donovan made the call. He's like, "Hey, bud, remember UF? We had good times there. You know what's better than Gainesville? Chicago. Come on down. Let's go."
Oh man, we got Brandon Miller out for the season.
Oh, well, that's a bummer.
having wrist surgery. That sucks. Way to end it.
All right. Sorry, Hornets. Turns out you're going to lose more games. That'll do it for us today. Mo Dakhil, of course, find his words over at Bleacher Report. Follow his Twitch stream, The Jump Ball. You're doing that a few times a week.
Monday to Thursday.
Yeah.
Usually at 11 a.m. Pacific time, but it's also contingent on what my schedule is that day.
Follow him on Twitter. I'm sure you'll update him.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for jumping on, man. This was fun.
Oh, thank you for having me, man.